All right, guys. I'm going to MC and then we'll go through this. Mark cannot be with us right now because he's doing a pitch right now, I think. So we'll try the best to get along without him. So, as a recap, the challenge that we put out for everybody is the ability to authenticate. Well, one of the major issues is how do you authenticate a virtual identity or NIM with Sybil and deepfake resistance? And this is a very difficult problem, and we're not quite sure we have a solution. So we'd like to propose a path forward that lets us accomplish at least one, if not all of these things. So, in other words, how can we utilize provably secure devices to prove, transfer, and maintain property or commercial rights? So specifically, the focus is on commercial use cases and not legal or civic systems like civic use cases like voting systems. A little bit more specifically, the problem is how do you know a given identity is really authentic, right? Like that identity, and we're speaking specifically of virtual identities, so not the entities behind them, right? Like the biological creatures or the physical creatures behind them. So how do you know a virtual identity is authentic and has the reputation or privileges that it claims? And this is related to a current issue in current technological implementations where legal, physical, or biological humans are tied to usernames, such as a Google account or a DID, like a 0x address, instead of secure key. Well, in the case of a DID, it is a secure key, but sometimes those keys aren't properly secured, such as put in a hardware device where nothing can read it, where the RAM, even if you had malware on the device, it was reading the RAM, it wouldn't be able to pull the key out. So fortunately, passkeys are a potential solution that let us track privileges and capabilities to represent the username. However, we need to improve passkeys with better multi-factor auth solutions that eliminate the ability of to reset the passkey with a simple, unilateral proof of. I'm just reading it off the slide here, but basically we want to make it easier to use passkeys, but at the same time we don't want to make it too easy that anyone can just force you to reset the passkey or assume your likeness or fake an ID or something like that. Did you guys want to take the next part or?
Sure. So right now, a lot of systems take as the root of trust a legal attestation where you demonstrate that you have a social security number or you have a driver's license or something like that, and you are a human, and you make a claim that you would like to do a thing and that you're not lying. That's, for example, how you open bank accounts. This is really, really, really cheap and easy to fake. There's the whole idea is three can keep a secret if two of them are dead. And so any secret that you've shared with a third party to authenticate yourself in the past is no longer a secure secret. So if you opened a bank account any time in the past, the IDs you used to open that bank account are no longer a secret from other attackers, stuff like that. Social attestations, getting others to vouch for you, can be compromised by pretending to be other people's friends to those people and then getting them to vouch for the attacker instead of for their actual friend, right? If anyone has ever friended you on Facebook from a new account of one of your old friends, you've encountered this. Biometric attestations can be spoofed both by malware on the individual devices and also by people who have intercepted your biometrics in the past. For example, thousands of law enforcement in the US have access to my fingerprints, and there's no way to differentiate between them leaving a fingerprint as me and me leaving a fingerprint. Yeah, but the fix is really nice, which is these days, because of great work that's been done by the major computer manufacturers, the major operating system people, almost all computers come with secure elements now, where you can create a key in the secure element, share the public key off of the element, and trust to a reasonable degree of certainty to the extent that you trust the manufacturer that the private key stays on that device and will die on that device. And so what you can do is when you create an account, you can have the private key of the device creating the account say, I am the device creating this account. And then you can do stuff like what Mark Miller was talking about, where you have a secure chain of custody between secure devices of the capabilities represented in that account. And this is nice, but it's not familiar. Right? The idea that your devices can get into your email, but the email company can't get you in if you lose all your devices, is something that people don't like yet and people don't understand yet. And so a lot of this is a UX and cultural issue. But the technology is here today already. If you go into your account settings for your Google account, you can secure your Google email with the devices that are logged into it, and you can get rid of passwords on your Google email already today, and it works. So it'd be nice if we can get to the point where all our bank accounts are like that too.
Yeah, and I think like also there are. It's worth noting current issues with hardware keys. So they can be physically lost, or they require some sort of memorization of either a PIN or a seed phrase or the private key itself. You can also be attacked, right? So somebody could just come up to you with a wrench and say, give me your hardware key." And then last bit, I think, is poor UX in terms of, so you can have malware on your device that spoofs messages to your hardware key. So there's been ton of examples. For example, with malware that keylogs or looks at what you're putting in your copy paste bin. So if you're trying to send somebody some address, trying to send somebody some crypto, but the address, you copy paste the address on the website, and then you're looking at it on your hardware key, that that hardware key can that display can be substituted by whatever's on in the paste bin, or by malware that's read the paste bin and substituted a different thing that looks like it but isn't it. So unless you're actually reading the hex code, right, where you've hashed the transaction and you know the transaction on the device is the same as the transaction that you think you're doing, which most people don't do because it's time intensive, then that's not going to happen. So we can't trust people to do that. So how can we make this easier to use in a device that's friendly but not too easy to use, that it's insecure?
Do you want to say any final words on like just what would this look like? How long would it take?
Yeah, I think the general idea here is we started with the question of how do you tell the difference between a human and an AI as the AIs become more sophisticated? And the answer is that you really can't, but you can tell the difference between an authorized message and an unauthorized message. And so the idea is a lot of us assume how we secure our bank accounts, how we secure our email, that the technical methods of security are janky and likely to fail and need to be backed up by authenticating a human being. But it's increasingly becoming obvious that the computers can actually fake being the human being easier than they can fake your technical methods of authentication. And so we need to go the opposite direction. We need to go to the point where it's not the idea that you're an authorized representative of this human is the thing that has a secure chain of custody. And so basically, you can't tell the difference between a computer claiming to be Joe Biden and Joe Biden. But you can tell the difference between a computer claiming to be Joe Biden without Joe Biden's permission and a computer claiming to be Joe Biden with Joe Biden's permission. And so instead of trying really, really hard to differentiate between deepfakes and meat space, we should instead try really, really hard to differentiate between authorized messages and unauthorized messages.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the other part of that, did you want to jump in on something?
I don't know if this is the right way to think about it, but the one way I thought about it was like it's like enforcing property rights using public key crypto. I guess maybe succinctly.
Which also may be the only real way to protect against civil attacks anyway, is having capital.
Yeah, and I think the last bit too that we wanted to mention is so if you lose the key, you're pretty much screwed. So right before Mark left, he also proposed a multi-party solution so that includes delegated authentication. So where you have ways to prove on. So for example, with a hardware key, you might have if you have two separate devices that you authenticate on. So you authenticate on the first device, and then on the second device you have a different key set. You authenticate, the odds of malware being on the same device and both keys being lost are very low. So having multiple redundant forms of factor authentication, and
And also, depending on risk profile, maybe you want it so that you need a quorum of old devices to approve or remove devices instead of just each device can manage the whole access list, again, depending on your risk profile.
Exactly, like a virtual identity for yourself, but multiple virtual identities that all act as signers, right? So if you have multiple keys, the odds of losing each of those keys become lower, especially if they're on different devices.
Or like 3 out of 5 of my best friends could put me back in my account.
Cool. Maybe Alex, you
This
finish
al-
this up, and
I
then
was
we
just
do
saying this
questions.
overlaps a lot with Avichal's topic. I know he wasn't here, but the education topic, because so many people still use the same password for everything, let alone getting to the point where they figure out how to not use passwords and use this authentication system that we're talking about. So education would be a huge necessary part of actually implementing a lot of these things. Like the technology is there, but the general population's very behind.
Yeah. Great.
Just for a second, do we have any questions, comments, helpful remarks? What needs to be fleshed out? I have a question. Could you scroll down a little bit? What does it mean there? Like, what would the project actually be? Because I think it said somewhere about like a 3 to 4 months. Go a bit up.
Not too far.
Yeah. A little up. Yeah. So what would like a kind of like prototype of this actually be? Like where?
Yeah, I think in general, we're looking to put more research effort into better UX for more secure forms of identity across devices. And
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we impact boundaries? Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, guys.